Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now, as you know, I like to answer questions from viewers to help them make their decisions based on my own observations through lived experience. And today I have a question from somebody who's going through something of a horological decision-making process. And I'm just going to throw some of my thoughts in to help Pete come to a decision. Now, I know Pete's a very intelligent man. I've met him myself. I know he can make this decision on his own, but I've got some thoughts. And Pete wrote to me just yesterday and basically told me that he has been on something of a varied watch journey for some time now. He's owned many special pieces over the last 10 years or so. But he's kind of hit a wall with the watch obsessing, which we all seem to go through at various phases of our lives. He wants to let one of his flagship watches go in order to consolidate his collection into something more of a manageable, small little collection of pieces that he can wear and enjoy. He has been offered a watch in particular which is causing him to have these thoughts, and it's a Rolex Datejust 41mm fluted bezel Jubilee bracelet with a bright blue dial, the current version. Pete says that when he first got into higher end wristwatches 10 years ago, Rolex at that time were still at their highest level of credibility. I remember it well. And it was very much before the Rolex bubble, which came along with the pandemic, the buying, the selling, the inflated prices. And now the public perception has kind of turned against Rolex to a degree. But Pete, much like me, was born and brought up in an era where Rolex were considered the pinnacle wristwatch that people, ordinary folk, could aspire to. I'm not talking about higher horology, which is financially beyond most people's reach and actually wouldn't be very practical in daily life anyway. But the Rolex brand kind of is the everyman's achievable high-level watch, is it not? Now, Pete tells me that he very much appreciates the Rolex brand, and even though there's a bit of a negative stance in the public world around it at the moment. His question is this. He asks, am I feeling brainwashed by the hype and the marketing? I will have only 2 Rolex watches that I have always wanted if he buys this one. The Datejust and a dive piece, which I know he has acquired recently. And he'd like our thoughts. And I've got some thoughts for you. The first thing I would say, there's a lot to unpack here, Pete. A lot of Rolex history, a lot of other things. But in the modern watch market, you know, us enthusiasts and collectors, we've really been spoiled for choice in the last few years, haven't we? Social media has exploded and the watch world has grasped it with both hands. And it seems that every movement in the watch world is now accompanied by a fanfare of social media, marketing, adverts. They keep coming up in your streams. Retailers are constantly bombarding us with news of the latest pieces which come along. And in years gone by, it was not like that. We tended to have a brand or a type of watch which crossed our path in some way. Might have been your father owned one, might have been somebody you knew. For me, I remember becoming interested in Rolex in those heady days of the 1980s, where Miami Vice was the big sort of focus for young people enjoying the glamour lifestyle that Miami Vice portrayed. And of course, Sonny Crockett wore a Rolex watch. Also, James Bond of my era, Roger Moore, wore a Rolex Submariner. So Rolex was this one thing which we all were attracted to. And they kind of extolled these virtues of being highly tough and rugged, so you could wear them as a normal watch, but they had this elevated cachet of being a piece which was an aspirational item to bring into your collection. So yeah, it's interesting. And even in this modern day sea of new watches arriving every 5 minutes, trying to outdo themselves in terms of complications and fantastical claims to what the watch can withstand and things like that, the Rolex Datejust 41mm, I think, still stands as an icon of sophistication and elegance. I started my own watch journey with a Rolex Datejust. That was the first luxury piece which I ever bought. It was a 36mm piece for me. I've got it here, in fact. Still have it. I'll have it until the day I die. I will never part with this watch. And it's very similar to the one which Pete is interested in. It is, except being a 36mm opposed to a 41, it is a Datejust with a bright blue dial, fluted bezel, and of course the Jubilee bracelet. So, let me give you 5 good reasons why you should go forward with this purchase, Pete. Now, the reason why I find myself continually attracted to my Datejust over the other watches I have access to in my safe is the fact of its timeless design. It embodies a watch design which has been refined over decades and decades. It's hard to believe that this watch was first released in 1945, and even those watches released way back then bear a strong family resemblance to this current model. Well, slightly out of date model now, but you know, within the last 10 years, because they have slowly and gradually evolved and got better. There's been no vast grand design. The watch still has that DNA. I think of all of the watches in the Rolex catalogue today, I think this is the oldest one, but of all those watches, it is perhaps the most recognisable, excepting possibly for the Rolex Submariner, which also has iconic status in the world of horology. There's no doubt of that at all. Now, the Datejust is characterised by a few design features which everybody will recognise. Firstly, it is the fluted bezel which goes around the dial. Those fluted bezel elements catch the light, and for me, instantly when I see a fluted bezel, my first thought is Rolex Datejust. I don't think no other brand has achieved that design perfection quite like Rolex has. In addition, the Jubilee bracelet. Now, of course, there are other bracelets available on the Datejust, but for me, a true Datejust has to have the Jubilee bracelet, because the Jubilee bracelet was designed and introduced purposefully to go along with the Datejust. So for me, they go hand in glove, so to speak. They are naturally bound to be together. And also, the other obvious sort of design characteristic is the Cyclops lens over the date, which magnifies the date for us so it's easily seen. So for me, those elements, perhaps more than any other watch in the Rolex collection, make this very identifiable. Now, there are many variations of the Datejust available. You know, you can have a smooth bezel, you can have an oyster bracelet, umpteen other variations, but for me, the classic is the purest, and that's exactly what Pete has said is possibly up his tree. Many other watches come and go over time, but the Datejust has remained constant, still setting the tone for those who are interested in classic yet daily wearable horology. Now, the next reason why I rather like the Rolex, as somebody who's interested in history and heritage, is the fact that Rolex has got something of an unparalleled place within the world of watchmaking, right? Historically, they are the largest watch brand right now. They have been for a long time. They set the tone for many other watch manufacturers to follow behind. And the Datejust is integral to that historical journey for Rolex. It has been right there at the heart of their catalogue for a very, very long time now. It is with good reason. It is one of the first wristwatches which was ever made, which has how do they describe it? A automatically changing date. So at the stroke of midnight, the date clicks forward to the next day, rather than gradually changing as the watch wore on, as the movement wore on, the date would gradually click over. And this revolutionized the world of wristwatches with that instant date changing quality. And in so doing, I think when you wear a Datejust, you wear a small piece of history on your wrist. And if you're somebody for whom that has value and interest, it's a good reason to put that watch on your wrist. Now, another reason why I think the Rolex Datejust 41, as Pete suggests, is a great decision, for a daily wearer is actually its engineering and its reliability. The watch is currently powered by the Rolex caliber 3235 movement. That is an automatic self-winding movement with 70 hours of power reserve in quite a small package as well. Now don't forget, the watch is highly capable. It's got an Oyster case, right? The Oyster case refers to its ability to deal with wet environments. It has 100 meters of water resistance and a screw-down crown. There is no reason in the world why you can't go diving, swimming in this watch. It is equally as capable of many of the watches in the Rolex range, which are in the professional collection of watches. Watches like the GMT Master 2, the Explorers, all 100 meters of water resistance, exactly the same as the Datejust. So it's tough, it's rugged, it's reliable. And I got to be honest, in a world which is becoming more and more crowded with watch manufacturers who are constantly bringing out new, and let's be honest, useless complications on their watches, I think the simplicity of a watch which tells the time and also just gives you the date has something refreshingly minimalist about it. I mean, I own a number of watches with GMT complications. For all my good intention when I bought them, I don't think I have ever used them to track a second sort of time zone. The reality is, for the vast amount of us, all we really need is to know the time and possibly the date. And the Datejust, well, it's all in the name really, Datejust. And that's the only complication which most of us need. Now, the next reason why I think putting a Datejust on your wrist is a damn good idea, and it's perhaps not the most savoury or palatable part of owning a wristwatch, which most people like to talk about because we're purists, we love watches. But the money comes into it as well. And like many Rolex watches, the Rolex Datejust benefits from the fact that Rolex has a pretty almost unique place in the world of nice quality watches, in so much as they retain their value fairly well. Now, it's not entirely unique. There are other, maybe more specialist watches which do retain that financial strength after you've bought them. But in most cases, practically all cases in reality, as soon as you buy a high-end watch, you walk out through the door of the authorized dealership and your watch loses money from that point on. But because of many market factors, the Rolex, and I do include the Datejust in this, seems to retain their value fairly well. Now, I know Pete seeks to buy this watch with a view to very long-term ownership. He just wants to buy a watch, wear it. He tells me that, you know, he's pretty hard on his watches, so he wants a watch which is tough and rugged and reliable. But it's always good to know in the back of your mind that your watch is actually able to hold its own should you ever need, in an emergency, to liquidate it for cash. And I do notice, through sort of scrolling through things like Chrono 24 and the like, that the stainless steel Datejust 41, particularly in the blue, bright blue dial variation, holds its money fairly well. Now, it is fair to say that it is somewhat obscenely priced for a stainless steel watch. What is it? £9,450 for a watch which is fairly unremarkable in many regards. However, that obscene price has to be weighed up against the fact that should you wish to move it on, you can at least get your money back and maybe even a little bit more, because that blue dial variation is the one which is definitely sought after by most people. Now, the final reason why I would say that the Datejust is an attractive option for people is the versatility which comes with this watch. I mean, there are few watches on the market which can claim to appeal to both the younger demographic. I was stood behind a chap in a queue at a shop the other day, maybe 25 years of age. I noticed he was wearing a two-tone gold and steel Datejust, fairly new model. Also, the older gentleman. You know, I went to a Rotary Club dinner a little while ago. I sat next to another gentleman, maybe in his 80s, who was wearing a stainless steel Datejust. Looked like he'd had it forever. But the point is, they appeal to the young and the old. And that is a rarity in the watch world, in reality. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact there is so much versatility of choice. I mean, you can, of course, have a variety of different sizes. You can have the 31mm if you're a lady. My wife wears a 31mm stainless steel Datejust. You can have the 36, my choice, because I'm a fairly medium-sized guy. I don't like somewhat larger watches. Or a 41mm watch if your preference is for a watch which perhaps takes up more space on your wrist. But it's not just the sizes, there's the materials. You have the option of full stainless steel, as I have. You can have two-tone with yellow gold, rose gold. So there's a lot of option there, not to mention the different types of bracelets. You have the Jubilee bracelet, the classic, or the Oyster bracelet. Again, both are available with different variations of two-tone, golds and steels. You've got bezel choices. You can have the traditional fluted bezel, as I have. You can have a smooth bezel. You can even have diamond festooned bezels if you want to be that person who is the blingy watch wearer in your group of people. And then we come to the dial colours and options. Now, I've got the Sunburst bright blue dial, much like the one Pete is desiring, but there are a variety of different bezel options, including, as again, diamond versions. You can have different motif versions. And one thing Rolex has always done, they always bring new dial variations into the collection every year. So there's always a little bit of something different there if you're interested. So it doesn't matter whether you want a pretty bog standard piece like I have, or a piece dripping with ice, those diamond versions. There is a Datejust for everybody, whether you have a very thick wallet or quite a small wallet, a big wrist or a small wrist, whether you like a bit of gold or you just like a bit of stainless steel. And I think that plays a big part in the reason why the watch has been so very, very popular. Not least the fact that as regards to versatility, you can wear this watch when you go to the beach, maybe going swimming, on a day out, at the pool, or it's equally at home on your wrist in the boardroom. Worn with your Savile Row suit, it looks smart, as it can look casual when you're in your day-to-day out in the woods clothes, as I do today. I've just taken this off my wrist, and this is the watch which I've had on my wrist for the last 5 months or so, because it just fits with my lifestyle. So, as a conclusion, what have I got to say? Well, the watch world is always looking for the next big thing. But one thing is sure, whatever happens, the Datejust will always be that watch which everybody sees and admires. And actually, when you put one on your wrist, you will quickly realise you don't actually need anything else. This is a watch which does everything for you. You can wear it in the rough and tumble. You can wear it in the sea or in the pool. You can wear it in the office. You can wear it on your wedding day as the special watch of your life. It can be a one watch collection, and it can be the only one that you need. So I think, Pete, from my point of view, it's a no-brainer. Get that 41mm Datejust, put it on your wrist, live with it, love it, and enjoy it, as I have with mine. I think it's 6 years or so that I've owned this one now, and I feel I'm only just starting to break it in. It's going to be here, and I'll pass it on to my next generation, my son. And who knows, it might go on a few generations more than that. Such is the quality of the engineering. So good luck to you, sir, and enjoy that piece. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed this video where I've passed my observations. If you have a question that you'd like my thoughts and views on, drop it in. Use the email or drop it into the comments section. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see my future content on wristwatches, men's style, or self-development. You can support my channel by simply buying me a coffee, which is a one-off thing, or if you want to join my Chap's Guide community, become a part of my Patreon group. You will benefit from the additional videos I make each week and a personal dialogue with me. If you'd like to do that, the link is in the description box below this video. So, until the next time, wear your watch with pride and passion, and I will see you again very soon.